Hello and welcome. You're tuned into TMH Daily English News. As we move on to the headlines today, the USAID chief has told the Ethiopian government to restore the essential services and allow humanitarian access into the Tigray region. Researchers criticized the international community for putting a political condition on a humanitarian problem in Tigray. And lastly, previously unseen 19th century map of Tigray includes Western Tigray and the highland of Eritrea as Tigray's territories. Moving on to the main stories for today, the USAID Chief Samantha Powers tells the Ethiopian government to restore essential services and allow humanitarian access into the region of Tigray. The administrator of the U.S. Agency for the International Development, Samantha Power, met with Ahmed Shaid on Friday on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank's spring meetings in Washington, D.C. Power told Shaid that the Biden administration acknowledges the recent progress towards improving humanitarian access into the northern region of Ethiopia. However, it remains concerned about the lack of humanitarian access into the region and the suspension of basic services in Tigray as well. The U.S. Department of State also reiterated the importance of significant and sustained unconditional and unhindered overland humanitarian access to meet the dire needs of the millions and millions of people in the northern region of Ethiopia. It also stressed that the urgency of resumption of basic services, which would include electricity, telecommunications, and banking, into full effect as well. A member of the European Parliament says the EU has failed to put enough pressure on the Ethiopian Prime Minister to end this ongoing humanitarian crisis in the Tigray region. Member of the European Parliament representing Ireland, Mick Wallace, criticized EU's appeasement policy regarding that Abiy Ahmed, in spite of the ongoing blockade on millions of people in the Tigrayans, which he dubbed is extremely criminal. Let's take a listen.
In the section on regional peace and security, for example, there's a reference to the European Peace Facility, and that we must make sure it abides by European values. Well, given that this mechanism is currently being used to pump hundreds of millions of euros worth of arms into a hot conflict in Ukraine, I wonder what this really mean. And does it mean if we pick a side in the conflict in the Horn of Africa that we could pump loads of weapons in as well and prolong the war? In paragraph F, we appear to hand off all responsibility at diplomatic attempts to end the terrible conflict in Ethiopia to the African Union, who we know are themselves at an impasse on the issue. While this language is consistent with Council statements from December, this is rather timid when compared to the language agreed at the European Council in June last year, which called for investigations into human rights violations by all sides in the conflict. The effective embargo on aid reaching the millions of Tigrayans desperately in need by the Ethiopian government is absolutely criminal at the moment, and the EU is apparently afraid to say a bad word to Prime Minister Abiy for some reason or other. Maybe they think that it will affect their potential trade arrangements.
Mick Wallace is also known for his scathing criticism of Abiy Ahmed's regime since the start of the war on Tigray. Renowned researcher René Lafort says the international community is putting political conditions on a humanitarian problem in the Tigray region. René Lafort, who also wrote extensively on sub-Saharan Africa, expressed his dismay at the fact that the pressure of the unhindered access is not aimed at Abiy Ahmed, but primarily at Ma'ala. He said that the international community says TDF must first leave Afar for this to be put through. This is putting a political condition on humanitarian problems, Lafort added that this proves a double standard, Western Tigray and the Eritrean occupation as well. He says Abiy is letting aid through into Tigray only in debris and drabs, adding that the international community seems to be satisfied with this, settling for less than the bare minimum. You're currently tuned into TMH Daily English News, and we'll be back after the short break.
We used to have a family, school, hospital, food, peace and freedom, but now we have none of them.
I don't know where my parents are.
I really miss my sister. Where is she? I want to know where my dad is. I miss my mom. I don't see my brother. So, people of the world, we are part of you. Please, we need your help. We have a dream. We want to make the world a better place for the people like us. Please, give us your hand. We are Tigrayan people. We are part of you. Act now.
Welcome back. Tigrayans outside have blockaded Tigray resort to Twitter to vent out their longing nostalgia for their families and their friends. TMH Bairu has more on this story.
Denied of all forms of communication to reach their family and friends in Tigray as a result of the 360-degree siege imposed by the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and their Amhara allies, Tigrayans outside of Tigray, especially those in the diaspora, are posting archived pictures of loved ones and sentimental messages of love and yearning under #SendLoveToTigray. Melita Burhana Meskel wrote, "This morning I frantically called Addis, demanding my uncle tell me if my grandmother in Tigray was still alive. As if he knows. Miss me with the Easter, what would Jesus do responses. Truth is, Jesus was a revolutionary who would be kicking in doors, free Tigray." Another one with the Twitter handle, Duke Burbridge wrote, "I see your pain every day and my heart breaks again. For Takla's parents and the families who have been cut off from the world, for Roshan's grandma and everyone else who has died, for the precious angel who nearly shared my birthday." He said, posting pictures of a newborn baby, just 800 grams, treated in a clinic, dying shortly after he was born, along with his malnourished mother on the 14th of September 2021. 17 months since I've spoken to my favorite person. I'd do anything to sit with you for hours with my broken Tigrinya, asking questions about our family and life over the loud music of Asar Tashdishta in Maqala. I'm so disconnected without you, said Betty Dasaling. Samrat Lahaka Mariam, who posted several pictures from her family, wrote, "I can't wait to see you, hug you all again, miss you to death." Sion said, "My aunt who has health problems spent weeks weaving this traditional bread-serving tray and handmade cloth for my wedding present. It has been over a year since I talked to her." G'day Woldu wrote, "Dear Dad and Mom, it has been 530 plus days since the start of the Tigray genocide. Not being able to hear your voice and know you're okay has been a nightmare." Mulu B missed his friends and their Sunday ritual on the mountains around Maqala hiking. Malakia Tigray sent her love to all the children of Tigray, including her precious daughter Rufti. She posted a picture of her daughter and other kids in KG, the latest she could get. 516 days since I talked to you, she laments and asks the US president to put pressure on the Ethiopian authorities to reconnect Tigray. Praying to see you smile again, writes Leah regarding her mom. Rahel Iftar to her dad, "It has been 530 plus days since the Tigray genocide. Not being able to hear your voice and know you're okay has been a nightmare. I'm so sorry that the world has failed Tigray. I miss you. I would give anything to see you just one more time." Some of the messages, like this one, are optimistic. "I hope a day will come that we will walk together, the same path, refresh memories, relearn every turn and twist, experience our grandparents' livelihoods, the sound of the church, the smell of the meadow." One observer, by the Twitter handle Say No to War, recaps his observation of #SendLoveToTigray posts that they point to Tigara's collective longing for people, family, and friends.
As previously unseen on the 19th century map of Tigray, it includes Western Tigray, Highland Eritrea as Tigray's territories. Researchers at Ghent University have published a previously unseen map of the Horn of Africa. The map could be found at the National Library of Estonia. The map was made in one of the few stronger cartographic publishing houses in the 19th century Germany, managed by Carl Fleming. The researchers wrote was aided by the cartographer Frederick Hant, who worked on nearly every map assignment for the firm. The researchers wrote that the Red Sea coast, Egypt, also known as Nubia, and the northern and central Ethiopian highlands were known, and the Tigray Amhara were also mapped in relative detail to the south with fuzzy boundaries for Shoa. Amhara corresponded largely to the current Amhara region, yet with Wello as a separate entity. The territorial map of Tigray included the Eritrean highlands and the current Tigray region, clearly compromising the current western Tigray, with Welkait and Weldawa by 1849 Eritrea had not yet come into existence as a separate territory. There are other sources that also show that Tigray was a lot bigger than sometimes 4 times bigger what it is today. And a book by Manuel Bardas, published in 1634, puts Tigray's size as extending all the way from the north to the south, that is, from the limits of the in Eritrea to Enderta. Jerome Lobo, a 17th century Portuguese missionary and a travel, includes the Semine Mountains as well as part of Tigray. Indeed, I never saw snow in Abyssinia except on Mount Semine in the kingdom of Tigray, very remote from Nile on the Namara, which is indeed not far distance, but where there never fails snow sufficient is to the wet and the foot of the mountain where it's melted. Lobo wrote on his book published later in 1887. The Ethiopian states of today are organized on the people's identity, culture, consent, and it has provided ways of people to express their consent through referendums. Tighath Media, which published the research finding, believes these resources will help countering the incest, baseless, and anti-constitutional claims of the Amhara politicians of Western Tigray. Tigray and the Amhara activists have made references to old maps, census data, and historical places names in defending their right to rule this part of Ethiopia. Now that the research team headed by Professor Jan Nissen has discovered a German-made map from 1849 clearly stating that Walqait is part of Tigray, the question just remains whether the Amhara activists will manage to find an even older map stating the opposite, said Jatil Tromval on his Twitter account. He added that trying to redraw the political administrative entities with force and ethnic cleansing is not an optimal strategy to achieve sustainable peace. We're going to take a quick short break and then we'll be right back.
I want from children Tigray.
عارف
I need food, not warm. I need medicine, not warm. I need life, not to die. Please stand with me. Please stand with children in Tigray. Thank you.
That concludes our news for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.